In this video we're going to go over the civil geometry horizontal tools, and the first tools that we're going to talk about are the general geometry tools. Those are located over under task and under civil tools, horizontal geometry. It's the first row of tools. And so what you can do is you can right click on there and open general geometry as a toolbox. And so here's the general geometry tools. And the very first icon is the design standards toolbar. Now with a MoDOT setup, those are already out on your screen, or should be out on your screen down here at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and try to grab them and bring them up so we can take a look at them. And I'm also going to zoom into this first area. Okay, now what they would like us to do in this first area is set the design standards to this the settings right here. And so in here I'm going to go to the pull down. I'm going to go to the 4-lane. So I'm going to expand that out. 8% super. So I'm going to expand that out. And then 55 miles per hour. So I'm going to click on that like so. And then it wants us to do the stopping sight distance. So again, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to make sure it's on stopping sight distance. Now, these settings are stored in a DGN lib, and when I activate them, they will be copied into this DGN file. And to kind of show you that, I'm going to go over to Project Explorer. I'm going to go to my civil standards, and I'm going to go to the active file that we have here. You can see the libraries down here. I'm going to go to the active file, and under design standards I'm going to expand that out. You can see that there is a vertical and horizontal section there, but there's nothing listed underneath those. And so when I activate this, it will copy these standards over to that section. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to look at my toggle bar here. This one is, I believe, set. Let me hit reset there and come back. I'm trying to get this. Let me close that down real quick and bring it back up. And set it one more time. 4-lane, 8%, 55 miles per hour. And again, stopping sight distance. Trying to hover over these tools to get what it is, and it's not quite agreeing with me. That one's working. That one's not. Okay, what this first one is the set feature definition. Set feature definition. And this one here is activate activate the design standards. This one is set the design standards, and this one is activate the design standards. Now when I click on this one, what's going to happen is it's going to copy these settings from the library or the DGN lib into this file. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You can see it's kind of thinking there for a second, and when it's done, it has finished copying those settings on out to this DGN file. And so to check this, I'm going to go back to my Project Explorer tab. I'm going to go to Civil Standards, and now you'll see we've got some pluses by the vertical and horizontal, and those settings are now in here. You can see stopping sight distance, you can see 4-lane. It's got it brings over all the percent supers, and then also all the miles per hour options. And so that's basically what it's done, is it basically went to the library, DGN lib, and copied them to this file. And so now if you take this file and hand it off to somebody else, those settings would go with it. Okay, so we're all set up. We got that set, and now what we're going to do now is come into our set design standards, and right now we've got an alignment out there. You can see it's got some settings on there. It looks like 2,000 foot radius, 200 foot length of spiral, and the bearings and distances are out there. But it has no design standards on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to apply some design standards. We're going to come up to this first icon over here on the design standards toolbar, and this one is the set. And I can come over. Let's see if it displays it here, and it does. Set design standards. So I can use this icon or I can use this icon. Doesn't make any difference. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it, and now it says select the element. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it. And as soon as I pick that element, I've got an issue here. I've got these glyphs showing up saying that there's some sort of problem. So what I'm going to do is, this tool is still wanting to apply design standards, so I'm going to hit F4 to flush out that tool and go back to the element selection. And I'm going to come into this glyph over here on the left, and I'm just going to kind of try to click on it. I'm going to go down to the south side of it, and it's not picking it yet. Again, once you get that glyph, you can get a little message. It says transition length is less than default. The design standard value is 230, but the actual value is 200. And so that's what the design standards will do, is it'll check your geometry and see if they match the AASHTO standards based on your parameters that you have. And so all you have to do to fix this glyph, we've got two of them, I'm going to fix the first one, is change this length of spiral. I'm going to come in here and just going to click on it. I'm going to type in 230, I'm going to hit enter. The glyph goes away because it's now matching or meeting the design standards. And so I'm going to click on this glyph again. Sometimes it's a little bit hard. You can see now I got the message there, same message as the other side, 230. All we have is 200. So I'm going to click on the alignment. I'm going to click on that 200. I'm going to go to 230 on that one, and the glyph should go away. So that alignment looks good now for our design standards. Okay. We're going to move on to the next section. We're going to go into something called feature definition toggle bar. And basically in SS4, the way we apply design standards is through a feature definition now. In the past it used to be through DNC Manager with the old SS2, but now in Power GEOPAK SS4 we're going to be using feature definitions. And the next icon in our general geometry tools is the feature definition toggle bar. Now again, just like the design standards, this toggle bar is already out on our screen, and it's located right up here, and I'm going to go ahead and try to drag that on out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a feature definition for these items here. I'm just going to come in here and go down through the list, and this list is very similar to what we had in the DNC Manager. If we go to design, we got design standards, drafting standards, and preliminary planning. And so I'm going to go into design standards. I'm going to go down to, say, geometry, and then geometry scratch. Okay. And then the next thing you can do is you can apply this feature definition to any of the other toolbars that you're going to be using. So I'm going to toggle that on to apply that feature definition. Okay. Now to get this to set it to an item that you have out there already, what you can do is go to back to your task. You got to go to general geometry and then come up here to the set icon, which is this one, set feature definition. Set feature definition. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to bring up this tool. Now there's a bug with this tool. Notice I had this icon turned on, which is apply feature definition, but it did not fill out the set feature definition dialog. And that is a bug that we reported to Bentley. They just haven't got around to fixing it yet. So the workaround is all you got to do is come up, turn this off, turn it back on, and when you turn it back on, that feature now shows up in this drawing. Now this geometry scratch is just a red line, so I'm going to just go out and click on this white line here, and when I reset to complete, it turns that or applies that feature definition of geometry scratch. Now say you had a feature definition or a line or an element out that has the right feature definition already, and you want to copy that feature definition, you can do that as well. For example, we got a building line here and we got a right-of-way line of some sort here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to match one of those feature definitions and then apply it over here. And so I'm going to come up, and in our feature definition toggle bar we've got one called match feature definition. So we're going to click on match. I'm going to do this right-of-way line here. You can see as soon as I clicked on it, my feature definition updated here. It's now right-of-way property limit access existing. And if I say want to apply that to this red line over here now, I'll go back again to my task, in general geometry, to the set tool. When I go to the set tool again, notice that it's not using the applied feature definition that we have turned on up here. Again, the workaround is just turn it off, turn it back on, and there is the feature definition in there. Now, also, if you wanted to name these lines that you have out here, because sometimes you're going to be laying out an alignment, and if you want to name that, you just come into where it says the name under feature definition. You can just modify that name. But I'm just going to go ahead and go with the default. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to left click on that. As soon as I right click to reset, you can see that the feature definition is now applied to that line. So that's all there is to setting a feature definition and basically copying a feature definition from another line. Just use the set tool under general geometry and use the match tool with this feature definition toggle bar. Okay, we're going to move on over to the next section, which is horizontal geometry report. Under the general geometry tools again, the last icon is horizontal geometry report. So once I click on that icon, it's going to ask, okay, locate the first alignment. And if you want to do multiple alignments, you could do that. And then when you're done selecting the multiple alignments, you just right click to reset to complete. And it's now going to ask for a station distance. So we're going to say from here to the end. Internal interval 0. Profile included, we have none, so we're going to say none to that. And once you click none, it's going to pop open a report of that alignment. And here's the report. There are many other reports that you can click on if you would prefer one of those. If you do find a report that you really like, say for this one, this report right here, you can make that the default report by just right-clicking and coming down and do a set as default for geometry. Okay, so that's how you make that one your default report. Now, the other thing that you can modify is how this report looks. You can go up to your tools pull down and go down to format options, and when you change something in here, it will update the report. For example, you can see that station decimal is only to 2 decimal places. If you wanted to make that to 3, you could do that. Let me go and come in here and let's see. Here's our station, 2 decimal places, and we're just kind of playing here. So I'm going to make it really large, many decimal places. I'm going to go to 7, but as soon as I switch it to 7, you can see that the decimal places go to 7 decimal places for the stationing. Now you may not want to leave it on that. Typically at MODOUT we take it down to 2 decimal places, and so that would be more appropriate. But just be aware that this report is modifiable, or this what you see here is you can change based on these format options. Okay. Now, a quicker way to get to the report, and you'll see this in Power GEOPAK, is if you just click on the element itself, they'll bring up some heads-up tools, and one of the heads-up tools is the horizontal geometry report. So that would be a quicker way to get the tool just by clicking on the element. Okay, this last section that we're going to talk about with our general geometry deals with the feature definition toggle bar here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my apply design standards. I'm done with that. I'm actually going to dock it down here back at the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to be able to lay out a temporary corridor in this little terrain area here that we have. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and I'm going to pick an appropriate feature definition for laying out a little corridor here, and it's under this preliminary planning. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this asphalt pavement 2-lane. I have the feature definition applied, that's turned on. I'm also going to turn on this icon here, which is it will generate a 3D profile, because each corridor that we place, or to make a corridor, you need to have a alignment and a profile. So this will create a 3D alignment automatically, or profile. And then also I'm going to turn on this one, which is use feature definition template, and that's what we have already set here as a template that we can draw. So I'm going to turn that on as well. Now, to place an alignment out here, I'm going to go down back into my civil geometry tools, or sorry, my horizontal geometry tools, and I'm going to go to the this third row, first icon, which is the line between points. So I'm just going to place a line out here by coming over here to the left. I'm just going to left click to start the line, and I'm going to left click to end the line. And when I do that, it's again going to create a best fit profile, and then it's going to lay a corridor out there. And you really can't see the corridor too well in this plan view because you're looking straight down. But what you can do is you can hit the F6 key, and that'll open up a model view. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a model view. It's going to keep the plan view on the left and then open up the model view on the right. And in this particular view, you can see the roadbed. When it comes above ground, you can see it, but when it dives down below ground, you can't see it. And so what you typically do at MoDOT is we don't leave our triangles on typically when we're working with corridors. We just switch this to a boundary. So I'm going to try to do that real quick here and see if I can do that. We're going to override our symbology, and I'm going to turn off the triangles. And because this model is referenced, and I'm going to come over here and do the same thing over here. I'm going to try to click on the boundary. I'm going to override symbology. I'm going to turn off the triangles. So when I turn off the triangles, you can see your model that you just created. And so you can rotate this view if you want. You got to be in this view, and the way that you rotate it is you come up to this view rotation, rotate view tool, and you come out and you grab this little plus symbol and you try to snap it onto something. Once it's snapped onto something, you can rotate that view about. Okay, so that's one way where you can see the entire roadbed. Another way you can do it is by adjusting the profile up, and that's what I'm going to try to do here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and go back and put my triangle settings back to where they were. So I'm going to hit, actually I'm going to go to a top view first. I'm going to hit F4 to get out of that tool I was in. I'm going to go back to my properties. I'm going to say override symbology. I'm going to say no to that. So there's my triangles. There's that problem I had again with my template being above ground in certain areas and below ground in another area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my horizontal side and I'm going to adjust the profile height. And so this is something you're going to see in later videos, is how to do this when we get to the profile tools, but I'm going to show it to you right here as well. I'm going to come in here and I'm clicking on this alignment, and this alignment I'm going to go into the profile model view of it, because there is a profile that was created when we created this this corridor. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go down to my view, which is I'm going to go into view 8. I'm going to click in there. You can see the red line is the best fit profile that it created, and it is active. If I would hit my F4 key and just hover over that profile, you can see the active profile is the fit profile, which was again automatically created to fit the existing ground line, a best fit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a profile that's above it and then make that the active profile. And when I do that, this corridor will pop up to that new profile. And so I'm going to go over to my task. I'm going to slide down to my vertical geometry, and the tool that I want is right here, this one here, profile offset transition. I'm going to click on that, and it says locate element. So we're going to locate our profile. It's going to ask us for a start offset and basically a start location as well. So I'm going to go 40 feet above, and I'm going to enter that, and I'm going to also then left click that location, and now it's going to ask for an end. So I'm just going to go all the way past the end, and I'm going to left click to accept it. And it's going to ask us, do we want to mirror? I'm going to say no by left clicking, and there's my new profile. Now it's not active yet, so I'm going to go ahead and make it active. Again, once I make it active, this corridor that I have up here will draw to it, because it's tied to that alignment, and these two profiles are tied to that alignment, but only one profile can be active at a time. And so I'm going to go ahead and make it active. I'm going to come over, click on it, bring up the heads up tools. I'm going to go to the second icon, which is set as active profile. And once I do that, you'll see that the corridor now draws up to it, and you can see that it looks sort of like so here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this and just take a look and see what we got. So I'm going to zoom in. I got to make this banner active. I'm going to go ahead and close down my profile view. So I'm in this banner. I'm going to go to the rotate view. I'm going to go right there and I'm going to rotate. You can see we're getting shadowing going on too as well. I'm going to try one other thing I like to do in this 3D view is come to the brightness tool, and I'm going to make that a little bit brighter so it's a little bit easier to see. But again, you can see when you zoom in, you can see materials are applied to the components, which looks cool. Also, materials are applied to the end slopes as well, so grass looks a little bit more like grass instead of just a green surface. And so that's all there is to creating a kind of a preliminary corridor, and then looking at it in the model view, you hit the F6 key. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that down. I'm going to close down my profile view as well, and I'm going to go ahead and maximize my plan view again. So that's the general geometry tools in the horizontal geometry, civil geometry section.